Go ahead, Gene.
We met Bob and Michelle right after we joined Chalice, which was about 30 years ago. 10 years ago. And they invited us to their house for a dinner. So we were talking and laughing and drinking and whatnot. And Bob wanted to show me something. So he said, look at this. This is something that I found at a particular store, he said, and I think it's very good. And he gave me a bottle of this.
What is it?
And I enjoyed it very much. So did Emily. So we've been drinking it ever since.
All right.
That's nice.
I knew Bob and Michelle. Bob and Michelle were part of the North County Inland. When this Chalice Unitarians first started opening the new fellowship up here in the North County. And so we visited their place, they visited ours. Bob and Michelle live at a real nice spot, have a bit of property and it's out in the back, a nice little area together. The stream runs through it, so we've held a couple of picnics there, and I remember that. And then also visiting their place with with a dinner group as well. So that friendship for Bob and Michelle goes a long ways back. So it's pretty, so that's my regrets along condolences.
Along with you, I met Bob and Michelle back when it was UUINCF, and we were meeting in a swim and tennis club in Rancho Bernardo years and years and years ago. And they were always, a very big part of the UU group, doing the things that were necessary to make the group a successful one. Michelle with her very lively and great smile and wonderful person. Bob with his more serious and executive, if you will, kind of approach to things, running the programs that were necessary during the existence of UU and INCL. So enjoyed their company always felt like they were a strong couple that had our individual and group interests at heart at all times. So I'm very pleased to have had that opportunity to be a part of their life to a certain extent, and they mine as I moved away from UUINCF and then came back to Chalice.
You're muted, Ed.
How about now?
Yep, you're good.
Nope.
I know I'm
Okay.
muted. I'm going to stay muted for a while.
I'm
Bob
talking to
and
Ed Hall.
Sorry, somebody want to say something?
No, go ahead, Ed.
Bob and I had this connection in that we were at Purdue at the same time. He was 1 year ahead of me, and in a branch of engineering that was somewhat in excess of my IQ and interest in the whole thing. In any event, Jan and I will always be grateful to Bob and Michelle for having sort of tackled us when we first showed up at Chalice and got us totally, fully integrated into the church. Somewhat like Gene, they had a dinner for us with a group of people right away, and that really was appreciated. I also appreciated Bob's being a stalwart of the church, and I respected. I think I would say I respected and admired him very much. In addition to his having been a friend, and of course, I always have felt that his best move was marrying Michelle. That's where I'm at.
Okay.
Thank you, Ed.
Just following up on Ed's remarks. I met Bob in the middle of a trustee congregational meeting in which the issue was whether we should reduce the number of members on the board of trustees to I don't know, 2 fewer or something like that. And Bob spoke up and very, very clearly and adamantly said, no, that's not a good idea. As it turned out, the motion at the time didn't have enough votes to have a second, so it failed. But at any rate, Bob showed his commitment to the board of trustees the way he had experienced it, and it's remained that way since. So that's a legacy, and that's my memory. Aside from the coffee hours where Bob and Michelle were always most friendly and engaging for Maureen and me. Just that's wonderful. Of course, I echo all of the comments about Michelle's outgoing smile and so on. Yes, he was lucky to have her, and I guess she was lucky to have him.
I had the privilege to work with Bob on 2 Chalice related things. One was the buildings.
Right here, see that little speaker? Oh, it's all the way up. Here, Marty, will you,
We can hear you now, Marty.
Oh, I muted him. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. One was the putting the new building, the hub, together. We've met for many, that we had a little committee and that Bob led, where we explored all the different options, come up with a plan. We were going to do this in 3 stages, all this stuff. So we did a lot of planning, a lot of thinking things through, finding an architect, and all that stuff. And Bob kind of led that whole thing. And it was a pleasure working with him. And he's kind of my mentor. Now I see him as, I learned a lot by doing that. The other committee that I was on was when we changed our policy governance. This was, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 years ago. We changed how we did things at Chalice. It used to be the board was in charge of everything, from buying copy paper to the ink in the copy machine to what bottled water we were going to get. I mean, the board was involved with every decision, and it was just it was too cumbersome. So anyway, we changed to the system that we have now, and Bob was led that committee as well, and we all put our did research, found this policy governance type of way of running a church, and it's much smoother running now and stuff. So that was a lot that have to do with Bob and his leadership in that. And then my other memories are, of course, going to their house for 4th of July parties, etc., and dinners, and always having a wonderful time. And they were such wonderful hosts there that it was a.
Yeah.
And I remember they had a 50th, I think it was a 50th wedding anniversary shindig at the Lexus dealership there in Escondido. They have a restaurant. I forgot the name right now, but
Ventana.
Ventana, yeah.
and we had just a marvelous evening with them. So Bob and Michelle were very gracious at that.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
My, my memories of Bob, I actually met Michelle first because she was a trustee at Palomar College on the governing board. So I knew her first and didn't meet Bob till I came to Chalice. My main memories of him, of course, remember all the work he put in on the organizing the building upgrades and expansions. And I know that was a difficult task and really appreciated all the work he put into it. But my primary memories were just chatting with him at coffee hour about trips they took, such as to India, talking to him and Michelle about that. Also, I know he was a big Chargers fan and had season tickets, so I talked to him about the football Chargers. But the one thing I remember most was an actual story he told me about when he was younger. He and a friend, I think he must have been a teenager at the time, needed to cut down a tree in their yard. So they were looking at this big tree and they were looking where the power line was. And Bob said, we thought, oh yeah, it'll be no problem. It'll fall short of that real easily. Well, he said they cut it down and they weren't even close.
Marty.
Hello.
And it took out the power line and said that it blacked out a good portion of the city of Poway. So he said that he laughed about that and said that was
No.
a very embarrassing moment for him.
So do we have Marty?
Well, he's there, but when I turn it on, they're all talking and it ruins the rest of this, what we're trying to do. So
Yeah.
I made the decision to keep him mute for a while.
I'll turn him on and see if he'll answer now and we can hear him,
Right.
or vice versa, they can hear us.
I have to ask him to unmute. He has to do it himself.
Oh, okay.
He's not doing it.
Yeah, he evidently isn't hearing us.
Okay, well, but you asked to unmute, it displays a message on his screen.
Yeah.
But because it recognizes he's muted. So why don't you go ahead, Dennis?
Sure. I must admit, I didn't know Bob very well. I know Michelle more. But I do remember that one of the very first Sunday mornings that we attended Chalice, I can still picture Michelle and Bob coming up and getting to know us and knew that we were new and welcomed us into the congregation. I knew Michelle more because she joined the Immigration Justice Action team that I was part of. So we got to work together. But hearing Tom speak and others, you have to admire someone like Bob. Someone like Bob is a critical part of a congregation and its success. I mean, in the previous congregation I belonged to, one of the hardest things we did, and one that took an enormous amount of work, was building an addition. And I must tell you that was when we built that addition, the church grew. Because I think when people came and saw the space, not only did they like the congregation, but they could see themselves in that space. And I know as an engineer, especially when you have a lot of other people watching you do something like build an addition, it's an awful lot of work. But it takes a lot of leadership to bring it to success. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to enjoy the hub. But that is really critical. Now that I know that he was part of policy governance, like Tom, I didn't know that. So I even admire him even more because that is so important. We went through the same thing in our previous congregation, exactly the same thing. This whole idea of so many people get involved in so many things, your congregation gets bogged down in ridiculous discussions. The board, so clearly he was an important part of a congregation. And in his, and we go on and hopefully we'll continue to be success because of his work.
Anyone else? I'd like to say a few words myself. I'm kind of Johnny come lately compared to most of you, but I had a very similar experience early on with Bob and Michelle. I met them at a dinner party Barbara had in her house about 6 months after I started coming to Chalice, just after the election of Donald Trump. And it was kind of like a funeral, Paul. But we had a fabulous time, and I got to know them both much, much better. And they basically both helped teach me. I would call them my mentors, as much as what Tom said. Both of them were my mentors because they taught me how to get things done at Chalice, and they were extremely supportive of me and the things I was trying to do. And Bob was, of course, an enormous force in getting the hub built, as several of you have said. He spent a lot of time, countless hours. He did all the bureaucratic nonsense with the city and the county and submitting plans and all that kind of thing. So they were together as a couple. They were very strong power players at Chalice, and I will miss Bob greatly.
Yep.
Anyone else? Okay. So I will extinguish our little Chalice here. I'll stop the recording, and then we can continue as normal.